like I said, I started competitively training at the age of 14. And for me, it was always about, like, when I was young, wanting to be the best. That's all I wanted. All I wanted was to be so good that I'd get first, or I was put in everything. Undeniably great. And I know I'd worked from the bottom up to get there. It gave me a lot of discipline, but it gave me a lot of intense emotions. I think because of my undiagnosed ADHD, and I think my home life as well, I felt like my entire life was just seeping through dance and seeping through, like, the seams of what I was trying to create in dance, and it was just, like, leaking out of me, like, all these difficult emotions. And it's just like, oh, I can sew it up by trying to be perfect, and it's just not, it wasn't happening, you know? So a lot of the time, I have a lot of trauma around dance, you know? I have a lot of difficult things that have happened to me, or things that have happened because of me, like where I've just had crazy meltdowns at competitions, or, you know, I can't compete because my mental health is too bad, or, you know, I can't compete because my back, like, I had a cyst in my spine from like over training. I hurt it, and then I kept training on it, and I was getting spasms where I was up at like 5 o'clock in the morning, having to, like, go to the hospital because my back wouldn't stop spasming. And, you know, it's with that, it made me realize, like, who were my closest friends, and, like, who took care of me, and, like, that my family, like my sisters especially, like, they took care of me, you know. It's given me discipline, but it has given me trauma. But the thing is, I love dance too much, and I love how it makes me feel. And it's more just shaping my perspective. It shaped my perspective. It's made me realize that that when I have to take a break, I have to take a break. Otherwise, I'm just going to end up, like, almost like killing myself over a career. And, like, who wants that? No one.
I completely agree.
No one wants that.
When did you start dancing, and, like, what have you kind of come to learn about that particular sort of way of expression?
So I started dance when I was 13. It was Cats the musical at my secondary school, and I auditioned. I'd always loved singing, and I was always a very active kid. That's what I'd always been known as, being very hyperactive. And so I auditioned, and I did the show, and, you know, my sister was a dancer, my older sister, so she did mostly, like, commercial, and she did it in A-levels, I think. She's a hairdresser now. But yeah, so I did that. And then within, like, maybe a few months or so, I, like, started doing ballet, tap, jazz, like, the classics of, like, dance, you know. And I sort of realized, I think, a year on, that I'd, like, improved, and I really enjoyed what I was doing. You know, it gave me something to focus in on, and it gave me bodily awareness. You know, I was very, like, gangly, and, like, my arms were always a bit too long, and I didn't know what to do with them. And it gave me self-awareness. And it just gave me passion as well. So, but after that, I think I started competitively training at the age of, like, 14. So I was dancing up to, like, 4 or 5 days a week, and my dance school was literally connected to my school, my secondary school. So I'd literally finish, like, school at, like, 3:15, and then I'd go straight to dancing by, like, 4 o'clock. And
What time would you finish?
what time would I finish?
Finish dancing?
I'd finish at, like, 6, 7. And I think later on, when I was, like, 16, 17, I would start helping as well. Either that be with privates, like private tuition, or just helping, assisting, and stuff like that. You know, I preferred to be in the dance studio than at home. So that was always sort of, like, my safe place at the time. But it did give me, I think, there was a lot of pressure for me, for myself, to be perfect.
Okay, and we'll talk about that because I think that encapsulates like just almost everyone who's obsessed about something. It's just that kind of tension.
Oh my God, yeah.
But let's take it back to like, so when you were 13 years old and you did it, the Cats
the musical.
What were you feeling when you were up on that stage for the first time?
To be honest, when I first did it, of course there's adrenaline.
Yeah.
There's naturally, you know, it's just always there, having that adrenaline and sense of fear in the best way possible. But I loved it. You know, I loved being on stage. I loved being seen. I loved having emotion to show and for the audience to connect to me in a way that I'm portraying. I loved the energy of being on stage, and that's something that like still carries with me. But yeah, I was very scared.
See, I relate to that too, because I remember my first time on stage was we had this kind of like school play that we did. I think it might have been Grinch, right? And I was one of the characters, and I was a pair with my best friend, and we would like go to like these practices. We practiced for it, and then we had like a live show. There were like a couple of live shows. I remember being on stage and having lines to say, and like, you know, you go through the whole thing, you get on stage, it's your turn to speak, and then everyone is just quiet, and just that kind of like, you know, feeling of like, this is it, like it's live, and everyone is like prepared for this, and I have to get off stage and go around the back, and just that. I think that was when I think it's being seen. I think that's when my kind of like love or curiosity of being on stage started from, because I was so young, but I was doing this thing that was like kind of beyond my understanding at that time.
And you learn discipline as well. Like, you know, having to run around backstage within like 30 seconds to be on the other side of the stage, like that's a lot to do as like, I don't know, like a 13-year-old, I think, you know, so it's sort of scary to remember those.
Yeah, and you're part of this whole like massive thing, and you realize you're just a part of it. Like, you know, like if you do your job properly, it kind of helps them, you know, do their job properly, you know?
You know, you rely on each other. It's a team effort when you're putting on a show. And that's something that's so special, I think, because when the curtain closes and when everyone's finished, you're like, damn, we all did that. And I think that's what's really lovely about performing.
So there's many different types of dancing, obviously, right? Yeah. Could you break down to me what genres you kind of were taking part in at the beginning, and like what genres you've kind of developed skills for now?
So I started with ballet. I was not good when I started. I had 2 left feet. I had turned in feet as well. Like, you're supposed to have turnout, and that was very hard for me to train. I didn't have much like muscle mass because I'm like hypermobile, so it's difficult for me to get muscle more than like a normal person. So I have to sort of work harder at those things. But with that comes with like natural flexibility. So I started with ballet and tap and jazz. Okay,
let's stay there for a second, because I'm fascinated by ballet, because I've seen outside portrayal of it, you know, like Black Swan or something like that. And so you see that and you think, oh my God, this is so intense. Like, this is the most intense thing ever. What is ballet like from someone who actually has done that and practiced that from early on?
You know, ballet takes a lot of bodily control, and it takes a lot of thought and a lot of strength. But I feel like there's so much grace in it. There's so much grace, but there's so much harshness at the same time. It's holding yourself there, but then pulling yourself back.
What do you mean? What do you mean? Go deeper in that for me.
Like, you can't be so stiff that you can't do anything, but you still need to hold yourself up. But you need to have that grace to like follow through all the moves. It's like finding that balance of strength and softness.
And how do you get yourself there? How much training and...
Oh my God.
Because I'm guessing the body doesn't naturally...
No, the body does not naturally do that unless you're very gifted and you have a gift for it, you know, which a lot of dancers do. But I wasn't... Like, when I first started, I wasn't on technique. I was all about emotion. So for me, ballet was just about having fun, and then jazz and lyrical more so, which is like a blend of contemporary and ballet, I would say, and sometimes a little bit of commercial aspects. Like, I was more fond of that, which had less technique. But for ballet, I think I think I have good technique now. I think I have pretty strong technique. but it took me years, like hours and hours and hours and hours at the ballet bar.
Of like training your...
Of training my body to do the things that I needed to do, for the turnout, for the upper body as well. I think we sort of forget that the upper body exists in ballet. It's not just having beautiful feet, you know. And, you know, I wouldn't consider myself a ballet dancer. Like, that is just a part of my training that I've had over the years. That is very, like, fundamental to all breeds of dance, mostly. So, yeah. And
so from ballet, you say the contemporary, more jazz. What is that? Can you explain what that means?
Like, jazz is a hybrid of ballet and like commercial, but it's, for me, jazz is like very musical theatre. Like that's how I see jazz. There's a line with like commercial jazz, which is more, you know, like commercial, what you see in music videos or what you see on adverts and things like that. But jazz, clean jazz, is very musical theatre, I would say.
What does that come with? Is that more like discipline, more technique than you would find in normal?
Yeah, you'd find a lot more discipline and technique in jazz, the same as ballet. You know, it sort of follows the same lines as well. Like you have a jazz first, which is like your feet are together, and a ballet first is this. So it's all sort of comes in the same circles, you know?
What do most people misunderstand about like what it takes to do what you do? Like what it takes to do ballet and jazz and all these different types of dances? Because I often think, right, like from my outside perspective, I think it's the technique, is the like remembering what you have to do in every second of it, like the kind of the choreography that you have to do, and like remember, and like I don't know if this is the same for every type of dancing, but from what I've seen for like, for example, ballet, it is a lot of just like, you know, putting your body in one form and changing another form, and then keep doing that and keep remembering that, and like the little mistakes that you make will be noticed by you or the person that you know. It's
true. You know, it really depends sort of if you're doing it recreationally, like say if you're just doing it for fun, you know, that is up to you what you decide, how you want to go further, or you want to improve, or you just want to chill. You know, I think that's an aspect of it. But I think what a lot of people misunderstand is that you don't just become great overnight, and you don't just become great when you book your first job or you're at the end of your career. You know, you're constantly a student. You know, there's no such thing as perfect, but there is, you know, discipline and, you know, being consistent. Because you're not always going to get it perfect, but you can be consistent. And that's something that I think can be misunderstood.
I think I relate to that because, you know, like when I was a kid, I did football. Yeah. And football is kind of how I can kind of conceptualize what you're saying, where you don't get good from the beginning. You just have to keep doing it consistently in technique and failing and doing it different levels of like, you know, competition. And then like that aspect of it is also something that as a young kid, I think shaped who I am. Yeah. Can you talk to me a little bit about how competition and training for like days where everything is high pressure, how that's kind of shaped your kind of understanding of self?
Yeah, like I said, I started competitively training at the age of 14. And for me, it was always about, like, when I was young, wanting to be the best. That's all I wanted. All I wanted was to be so good that I'd get first, or I was
undeniable
in everything. Undeniably great. And I know I'd worked from the bottom up to get there. It gave me a lot of discipline, but it gave me a lot of intense emotions. I think because of my undiagnosed ADHD and I think my home life as well, I felt like my entire life was just seeping through dance and seeping through like the seams of what I was trying to create in dance, and it was just like leaking out of me, like all these difficult emotions. And it's just like, I can sew it up by trying to be perfect, and it's just not, it wasn't happening, you know? So a lot of the time, I have a lot of trauma around dance, you know? I have a lot of difficult things that have happened to me, or things that have happened because of me, like where I've just had crazy meltdowns at competitions, or, you know, I can't compete because my mental health is too bad, or, you know, I can't compete because my back, like, I had a cyst in my spine from like overtraining. I hurt it, and then I kept training on it, and I was getting spasms where I was up at like 5 o'clock in the morning, having to like go to the hospital because my back wouldn't stop spasming. And, you know, it's with that, it made me realize like who were my closest friends and like who took care of me, and like that my family, like my sisters especially, like they took care of me, you know. It's given me discipline, but it has given me trauma. But the thing is, I love dance too much, and I love how it makes me feel. And it's more just shaping my perspective. It shaped my perspective. It's made me realize that that when I have to take a break, I have to take a break. Otherwise, I'm just going to end up like almost like killing myself over a career. And like, who wants that? No one.
I
like,
completely agree.
No one wants that.
I completely, and I see that too. I see now a lot of the people I know, because a lot of people I know are kind of the same, where they over high achievers, and they're used to being very good at something very young. When you have that kind of mentality, you want to do everything well, and so you put yourself under pressure through pain, through stress, through all of this, because you kind of conceptualize that as long as I win, everything else will be okay. And then you have the reality of that's not the case. Even if you win, everything's not okay. And then when you lose, what does that say about yourself and your sense of self and sense of self-worth? And I think like a lot of us are coming to this age where we're starting to realize that and go, okay, wait, I have to change my relationship to this thing. And I feel like as you get older, you have to do that, because if you still put your self-worth into this thing, it becomes very hard for you to find yourself outside of that. You know, you become dancing. And for me, I became football. And so if I'm not doing football, like, who am I?
Yeah.
But like, you know, I feel like that gives you opportunity to do other things, because we're not just one. We're not just one.
How many hours were you doing football? Like,
so I was playing football so like I'll do football at school. Yeah. So like, you know, we had like this thing called academy. So like the people there that were very good were taken out of class to go do training. So I do football at school. Then I'll do football on the weekends. I'll train on the weekends, usually on Saturdays. You play matches on Sundays, which means you get into so you literally every day of my life. And
you're on the pitch all the time. Like,
and even when I'm not out in my team, I'm at home playing with my friends, because that's what I love to do. But it got to a stage when I remember this vividly, where I was kind of going for trials for this kind of like age group thing. It was like supposed to be like the best in my county or something. And then I didn't get in. And it completely destroyed my sense of self-worth, because I was like, oh, like I thought this was who I was supposed to be. This was the next thing. And it kind of completely took my love out of football. Yeah. And so I stopped playing football. I stopped doing all of that, you know, and like, in hindsight, it kind of helped me kind of look around and start to think about what else do I like.
It like stripped you back a little bit to sort of recognize who you are without it. And yeah, even now, like, I'm still trying to figure out who I am. Like, I think it's an ever evolving thing, finding out who we are. And dance was so pinnacle to who I was and like what I wanted. And I had to strip back the layers. You know, when I was 18, I like moved to London and didn't dance for 2 years because of my back. And I was figuring out who I was, and even then I like didn't really know who I was. You know who you are when you're 18. Like, come on, stupid. You know, it's like I wanted to try something different and just be myself and experience having this like teenage life with no pressure. And yeah,
talk to me about that time then, like, because you say that, okay, so you stop ballet because of you're injured, and so you have to have now discovered this new sense of identity, move from something you keep doing all the time. Then you move to London, so that's like a new environment. What was that like? What were you trying to like? What did you seek when you got here? Or like, what was that kind of like your mentality when you got here?
I seeked breaking out of my bubble. I seeked breaking away from everything I knew. So, like, I grew up in a countryside, you know, so coming to London was a whole different experience, a whole different ball game. Like, even now, I've only moved back in the last few months, and it's still a different ball game, you know. I wanted to just, like, live life as a teenager, be reckless, be dumb, and have friends, close friends that I really connected with. And, you know, I was still sort of in the performing arts because I did performance and production art, so it was mostly acting. And that's when I started falling in love with acting as well, because of course I had a background in dance and singing, and I sort of realised actually I love acting as well. And, you know, all of that time I was still thinking about going to stage school, but it was in the back. It was in the back. I was not thinking about it. I just wanted to go out, get high, get drunk, make memories with a close-knit bunch of people. And I still did dance class every now and then when my back was up to it, and I was constantly freestyling at home. So I'd put a song on, I'd record myself, and I'd just move for me. And I think that's when I was realising, I still have this innate sense of belonging when I'm dancing, you know? And
talk to me about that. What is that innate sense for you? What does that mean? What does dancing mean to you when you're doing it, not just professionally, but like in your living room, putting a song and you're moving? What makes you love it in that moment?
It makes me feel so warm. It gives me a sense of safety, being in my own body, being in my own sense of self with no judgment. You know, there's nothing for me to say that really describes it, but sometimes when I freestyle really great, or like I'm feeling the music so much, I will get goosebumps like afterwards, because it's just so pure. It feels so pure to me. Dance was my first love. You know, dance, I'd work so hard, you know, just to, I remember I was like 15 and it was like Easter half term, and I remember my dance teacher being like, we need to put a backwards walkover in this piece because you need to do it. And I spent that entire 2 weeks like on my back like this, trying to do a fucking backwards walkover with like not much training. Well, I did a little bit of acrobatics, but I wasn't very good like that. And I got my backwards walkover, but sadly they weren't able to put it in the piece.
No!
It was inconsistent enough, and I was like, fuck, okay. But I got it. I got my backwards walkover. But yeah, it's just, I think I loved a challenge. And I think, you know, freestyling gives me a challenge to just go back in on myself and not think about anything else.
I think it's so interesting too, like when you find what you love about the things that you love. I always think about it, I always talk to people about this too, because sometimes it's something that's really connected to who we are, but we don't recognize it until we get a bit older, you know? Yeah. So for me, again, so for example, what I'm doing now, that's just podcasting, I always kind of knew, because in school I used to get in trouble for talking to people. I'd get in trouble for talking to people. That's the only thing I get in trouble for. Like, I was a good kid, studious, loved doing my homework, but you couldn't stop me from talking to people. I was just like,
it's there.
I was just the next person, like, talk to me, and then teacher would always get me in trouble also. I would always be the kid that got in trouble. Not the person, but always me. But yeah, it's always there, even if you don't see it until later, you know?
Exactly. I was such a hyperactive kid as well. Like, you could not, I was walking by like 10 months. I was like all over the place. My mum said I was just really difficult to handle as a kid. And, you know, I had all this like innate energy, and it was great to find dance at that time where I was like a little bit more mature, to have a little bit more self-awareness, to sort of like let it channel, you know?
Coming back to London then, like when you were here after a few months, and you're saying that you were finding freedom in a sense, what was that like? What did you learn from that period of time of like coming here and then like stepping into that version of yourself?
Oof. I think I figured out that like I was becoming an adult. You know, I had... Let me think.
The reason I asked that, right, and I would say what I learned, right, because for me it's a bit different, because I came when I was really young, and I've been in London ever since. But you're not really in London until you move out of your home, and then you have your own place, and that freedom, that sense of freedom is so dangerous in a sense, because it's both, right? It's like, yes, you can do anything, but also you can do anything. Yeah. And there's so much that you have to learn to live with, like, just like, as first of all, for me, like, I had to learn to actually live, so eat, cook, like, you know, get like, you know, like washing, how to live as an individual without anyone's support, but also what I do with my free time, you know, because you have all this opportunity and space, and sometimes I got stuck within my own head and the silence there. So I had to kind of find ways that I could do stuff that made me enjoy, that I enjoy doing, which is like, maybe going to like poetry or maybe going to movies and finding all these things. I kind of had to create a life for myself.
Yeah.
I think that's what you mean when you say you learn how to be an adult, because when you're an adult, you have to create your own life and deal with living that and like what that means for yourself and deal with yourself. A lot of time deal with the stuff that you've picked up as a child, but you're now at that age where you kind of need to deal with it because it's important for your kind of own progression,
No, I agree. So like when I moved here at 18, 19, I was living with my aunt. So I was still living with family. But of course my aunt wasn't my mum. So, I still did what I wanted to do. I was still going out and smoking weed and whatever the fuck, It's just like I wanted to be a little bit reckless, and I think that entire time in my life, all I wanted to do was have really close friends because of my mental health with dance, and I had like tumultuous friendships, and I didn't really understand friendship very well because I felt like it was always about my mental health, so it caused a lot of tension while growing up, I think, and a lot of people not understanding what was wrong with me. And so this time round when I was in London, I wanted to figure out who I was like without dance and who I was disconnected from my mental health and them not really knowing about my mental health in the beginning and just sort of being myself. And that's what I spent most of my time doing in my first couple years in London. And then after that, there was a lot of tension with my dad as well. Like he was sort of still living with me and my aunt at the time and my cousin. And he was just really difficult to be around sometimes. And would just be slightly insensitive and things like that. And I think that's why I liked being outside and just being with my friends. But yeah, and then after that, I sort of went to uni. But that time in my life was just like, well, you fucking do what you want. It was very much like that.
I feel like we all need that, though.
Yeah.
We all need that kind of freedom, because I feel like you can't have peace without freedom, because you kind of need to see what is out there for you. I always say, like, you need to break out of that kind of, like you mentioned before, the bubble of like identity. Because when you're growing up, you have a set identity, but you need to go outside of that to kind of figure out what you are and what you're not. I had to kind of realize that about myself,
Yeah, I had to realize that, like, I wasn't just a broken girl who self-harms and dances and is trying to, like, pull herself through this world. Like, I was very sad, like, growing, like, through my teenage years, even though, like, I found my love in dance, I had this innate sadness that was always just lingering over me. And, and being in London, I think helped me feel normal, even though I still had those struggles and just struggling in general. I think it gave me a sense of freedom and me understanding that, I'm not just a sad girl who dances.
Talking about that too, because I feel like one of the most important things that we all have to realize is that I mentioned before about how to live a life almost, and like we all go through these emotions, because I've been through like tumultuous times in your life, and like learning to feel and embody yourself in those moments is so difficult. Like we were talking about before, most people need to learn how to be sad.
No, exactly.
Because we don't know how to be sad.
Yeah.
We don't know how to stay with that and like really allow us to kind of go through the winter of our lives so we can actually go into the spring. We kind of always reject that. What have you learned about that? About like, I guess, learning how to be sad and how that's kind of helped you in your life in the long term?
I've learned that it's okay to be sad. It is okay to feel those certain things, because at the end of the day, if you keep pushing it down, it's going to burst up in many ways, more than one, and I've learned to sit with the sadness. I've learned to understand why I'm feeling this way, even if it means that, okay, I recognize that I'm sad now. Okay, I can push that aside for maybe a couple days, but I allow myself to sit down and I allow myself to feel it, because that energy needs to go somewhere. And if it can go in any place, it goes into expressing, even if that means to yourself. You know, I've learned that it's okay to be sad.
How did you get to that stage though? Because I'm guessing this wasn't something that you're taught, that you just innately know.
Definitely not.
You know, so it's like everyone has that issue. How do you get to that stage?
You know, a lot of therapy, I think. A lot of therapy. I started therapy, I think, at the age of... I was quite late. I think I was like 21, 22. So I've been in therapy for like over 2 years now. And, you know, before that, I was with CAMS, which is like for adolescents and like children under the NHS. I maybe did like 6 sessions with them. And, you know, I was sort of in and out of hospital and so forth. But yeah, therapy and like being around people that knew that I could like confide in, like certain friends and certain family, made me realize that it's okay to feel this way. You know, therapy mostly, because I just realized that I was just pushing things aside for too long, for way too long. And feeling guilty about feeling sad, when in reality it's a feeling. We're allowed to feel it. I shouldn't feel guilty or upset or so angry about feeling sad. It's not fair to me. It's not fair to me. I felt so guilty all the time, and I think it was stemmed from being a child and crying all the time and not having great emotional regulation. It damaged my self-esteem growing up, and it made me think I could never be sad. I can't be sad because people are going to see me being sad and they're going to think I'm a sad person and blah, 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 blah. Like, it's not whether you're a sad person. You know, we shouldn't identify with emotions. We shouldn't identify with being this way. You know, emotions are transient. And I've learned, I think that's what helped me with understanding and accepting sadness, is that I know that it's going to go away. You know, with a rainy cloud, there's sunshine just right around the corner.
Silver lines. I completely agree. What would you say to the version of yourself then that was in that mode of just like being sad, but hadn't realized what you have realized now? How would you because imagine there's someone listening right now that's kind of in that stage, you know, but doesn't know how to get out. Because I think that's often the issue. They might recognize that there's nothing wrong with being sad, but getting out is difficult because what do I even do? What are the steps, you know? And for me, I've kind of realized that, you know, obviously leaning on your friends, going outside and just, you know, getting some fresh air, you know, helps. But for you, what did you find about in that period of time that really helped you change that perspective?
Don't think about other people. Do not think about other people. Only think about yourself at this moment in time, and know that it's okay. It's okay to feel this way. You're not some strange, sad, whatever. You know, it's okay to feel sad. And I kept telling myself that it's okay. And then I realized I'm taking this whole weight off of guilt and shame, you know? You know, shame is one of the most difficult things to deal with. And if you're feeling shameful about being sad, oh my God, that's like...
double whammy.
That's, yeah, literally, it's gonna shove you straight into the ground, and you're not gonna want to get out because it's just, it's there. And I think it's being told that it's okay and to reach out. Either that means, you know, I've called Samaritans a couple times, even if it just means like for just an unbiased opinion or just to vent, writing to yourself or picking up the phone, and you don't even need to talk about what you're feeling. Just having a normal conversation, I think, just helps as well if you're in that state. But I always do say seek professional help if it gets to a point of, you know, that you're having like suicidal ideation or things like that. It can get really difficult, and I think seeking professional help, and, you know, for me, for a very, very long time, I refused to go on medication. I refused. You know, I was brought up in a way that, like, medication sort of makes you weak. My dad was very much like, oh, you don't need paracetamol, you'll be fine. I remember
But I'm in pain.
But I'm in pain, come on, like, help me here.
This military made it for this. So now now, you know. Are you kidding me?
Literally. So, like, I was sort of brought up with this mentality of, you know, you don't need medication.
Yeah.
So, for years and years, I would be on and off antidepressants, on and off, because I'd be like, oh, I'm great, I'm doing great. And then I'd be like, oh, I'll take it off, I don't need to do it. And it made me 10 times worse. I believe if it's your last resort, get on that medication and do not feel guilty about it, because there are so many people on meds to help with their mental health. Like, we're so lucky to be in like a first world country where we're able to have access to this, and we should take it.
Absolutely.
We should take it.
Absolutely. And everything you said, I completely agree with. From talking about emotions and like, because I often think the quality of your thoughts and your emotions is the quality of your life. And if you can get to a stage where you're comfortable with your emotions, not comfortable, but you know what I mean? Like, you have the good understanding of them, that they're going to be volatile. Sometimes it's going to be really, really good. Sometimes it's going to be really, really not good, you know, and understanding the role you play in that, you know, because sometimes, like, for example, you run into the issue of, you're not taking the right medications.
Yeah.
You know, like, you're not having the right vitamins and all these things. And we don't give that enough attention.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And as a society, we kind of just want to power through it, even though we have all this research and all this science to kind of tell us that actually you need to be, like, you know, having this type of, like, you know, immune system and all these things. You know, we sometimes take that responsibility on ourselves. And I think definitely something I've learned as I've gotten older is to rely more on other people. And you mentioned seeking professional help. Talk to me about therapy too. What made you make the jump from, not in therapy to actually, this is actually something that I need? Because I feel that's where most people get stuck. Because most people go, okay, I probably need to be in therapy, right?
Yeah.
I probably need that to talk to someone. But they feel stuck between, like, asking for help, and they get stuck on that asking for help stage. You know, what would you say to that person? How do they get past that initial kind of like stage of like, okay, actually maybe I need this thing, but actually going out and actually doing it?
Yeah, I always think speaking to someone about therapy, like, even if that's a close friend, I think, okay, I think I need therapy, or I, you know, have a talk about it with someone who is sort of closest to you but isn't maybe like medical or anything like that. And I think reach out to a GP, especially if you can't afford it, because I think they can sort of help with that. Even though on the NHS, not gonna lie, therapy's fucking shit. It's shit on NHS. I don't want to shit on the NHS because, you know, like, love the NHS, but it's, you know, a lot of it is underfunded, and a lot of the funding's been stripped back.
Yeah.
So it's something that we sort of have to deal with. But I think go in a sense when reaching out for therapy about being vulnerable. Being vulnerable is fine. I think it's fair. I think it's fine, and just understanding that it's okay. But yeah, I'd say reach out to a GP and sort of do your own research, I think, into what sort of therapies help. Like CBT, DBT, like it's all there, like what works for you. And I think more so just sending a message to the therapist, just sending it, just doing it. I think getting over that hurdle of being scared and being vulnerable is sometimes, like, for me, I was very lucky because I was with my ex-girlfriend at the time, and her mum, oh God, she was so sweet. She was so sweet to me. I was really, really struggling. And she did the research and she found me a therapist, you know. She found me a therapist, and, you know, me and my ex, we're not together anymore, but I'm so thankful that I met and had those memories with her, as well as meeting her mum, because I don't think I would have been in a space to be able to do that, you know? Yeah. So to rely on your friends and close family when you're really, really down is okay. You know, I think letting go of that pride, you know, let go of the pride. Let go of it. Absolutely.
And I think, like, you know, you can't exist by yourself alone.
You can't, yeah.
You know, you need support. We all need support. And I think that's kind of just changing the perspective about that. I really think is important. We're not like this lone wolf that can just survive by itself. You need people around you, and life is better, is more happy, is more supportive. Exactly. And in those moments where you need that support, you need to have the confidence and the kind of like the safety to be able to reach out and say that. Follow-up question is, what kind of tools did therapy give you? So once you would start going, what kind of tools did they give you to kind of like help you move? Because I know there's a lot of ways that therapy teaches you about how to, I guess, whether react to yourself or the internal voice, or like how you kind of be vulnerable with other people and you communicate. What are some of the things that, you know, therapy helps you with?
Finding compassion for myself, I think, was the first thing that therapy was trying to do, and to make me realize that a lot of the things that had happened in my childhood were not my fault. That was sort of the first realization, is that, you know, those were the tools that were helping me understand that, you know, a lot of these things that had happened aren't my fault. And that was sort of like the first tool, is like having a bit more perspective. I think having more perspective on the things that are happening to me, on why I'm feeling this way, on, you know, so many other things, why I'm making these decisions. You know, I think it was giving me more self-awareness and a lot of compassion-focused therapy. I think it was a lot of compassion-focused therapy about being kinder to myself. And, you know, a lot of the times I would cry because it was hard to be kind when I was feeling so down, and sort of beating myself up over it. And, you know, I was still dancing at the time and, you know, working at the time. And it was hard to just stop and listen and feel. But that's what therapy does. You know, it allows you to have sort of this unbiased space to break down and to look at yourself. And that was a tool that I was really using, because I was going once a week, and it gave me the space that once a week to just sort of let go and be vulnerable. But yeah, those were the tools mostly, like perspective, being kind to myself, and being aware that everyone has their own problems and everyone has their own issues, and not to be too harsh on yourself and others as well, because you don't know what someone else is going through, and, you know, it's their first life too. And you know, I'm still trying to learn that with, you know, people that have done wrong to me, you know. Oh God, you know, you don't deserve fucking compassion.
But you know what? I'm going to be compassionate.
No, literally,
because it's good for me.
Literally, it's learning to just like be compassionate to people that don't really deserve it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think a lot of it is what you said. It's like everyone's living their first life. You know, you're living your own first life too. One of the biggest changes for me was learning to love myself, and genuinely learning to love myself in spite of my faults, because I see everything I do all the time, and so I would be like, okay, if I wasn't me and I was someone else looking at me and how it talked to me, how would I feel about me? But oh my God, I think I'm so mean to myself. Why am I so mean? Everything I do is shitty. Like, and if I do something well, I don't compliment myself. I just go whatever that's expected. You know, that's not healthy. And so it's like learning that, in like, you know, like self-compassion and self-love, and, you know, those are the building blocks for like a truly kind of like a healthy life. Because once you start having that, you know, you start looking around you and you start going, oh, like, I'm glad that I get to do this. I'm glad, I have gratitude now for me today. You know, I am proud of who I am, and, you know, that's so helpful in being able to go out there and spread love. You know, because, you know, like you said, a lot of people are going through stuff.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah.
I think I can totally agree with you. It's about finding love for yourself, you know, and oh my gosh, I think it's always a never-ending journey of loving aspects of yourself. But I think I achieved loving myself maybe like a year ago, like fully. And
what changed for you after that moment?
I was able to just let go of what people thought of me. You know, I think I still struggle with that now, but I know that I'd always have myself. And it's like, I see it as this, like, I'm taking care of myself and another person, which is like the child me. You know, I'm taking care of her as well. And, you know, and that's the person that I'm trying to love the most. You know,
one of the things we talked about was kind of ADHD and like how, and I always joke with my friends that I think I might have a little bit of autism, a little bit of the ADHD, because you know yourself, and again, I've not been diagnosed, so I say this just as a, you know, purely for like comedy purposes. I think you should get diagnosed.
Yeah.
I think you should find it out, and I think it's so much help.
But I really respect self-diagnosis as well, because some people don't have the means to get around with self-diagnosing. So if you feel like you're somewhere on the spectrum, like, I respect that. Like, if you're like, oh, I think, you know, it's understandable. But yeah, I was diagnosed with ADHD, I think. It might have been like under a year ago, I think. It hasn't been long. My younger sister's diagnosed with autism and ADHD, and she actually was only diagnosed maybe about a year ago as well. But yeah, I think having a diagnosis brought a lot of light to like aspects of my life.
Okay, let's talk about what was your life like before and what was your life like after? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, what did it help you understand about yourself?
It helped me understand that, yeah, a lot of like my emotional regulation was to do with like my emotional dysregulation was to do with trauma and so forth. But a lot of it was because I have ADHD. Like, I always had troubles with like tantruming and like just not being able to sleep. And, you know, I remember being in year 2 and so I must have been like 5 or 6, and my mum getting a report saying she would do so much better in school if she was sleeping, you know, because I wouldn't sleep. And then they would let me nap on the floor while everyone went to assembly. And I was like, oh, this poor girl, like, they must have been like, damn, she's like going through it.
Yeah,
like, you know,
like, they don't let her sleep.
Yeah, no, legit. So it's like, it made me realize that a lot of the stuff that I was going through and a lot of like my executive functioning, so like getting up on time, doing my homework and like having a baseline to work with was just inherently difficult with me. Having the diagnosis made me realize that, okay, I understand why it's hard. I understand why things get really overwhelming and overstimulating. I get it. And it gave me this baseline of like, okay, yeah, you struggle, but there are things that can help as well. You know, I just thought I was like that. I just thought I was just like, and like, it gave me a label of like, oh, you're lazy, or like you're selfish, or, you know. You
internalize those.
Yeah, I internalize all those traits as myself. Like, so true. And then it brings a lot of shame and low self-esteem. And, you know, I realized, okay, it's not my fault, but it's now my job to make it better and like to try and make it better.
And what are some of the ways that, like, in that process afterwards, that you've obviously you now have that voice in your head saying, okay, it's not me, I'm not internalizing this. Yeah. But are there things that you do to kind of help with that? Some of those kind of traits that you used to internalize?
Yeah, I will always say just being kind to myself and writing things down. Kind, write, get things out. But then, so I have this calendar in my room. It's a calendar of one of my favorite DJs, and I loved stickers as a kid, and I was like trying to retrace back, okay, what helped me with like dopamine and what helped me with that sort of aspect of things. So when I do things in my life that go towards my training or go towards poetry or go towards my career, on the day I'll put a sticker on the wall. I like really traced it back to like childlike things, like getting a reward, like fueling my reward system in a way that isn't like detrimental to like, I don't know, like rotting in my bed and watching Netflix, you know, but sort of making sure that, yeah, that I'm doing something to sort of fuel my motivation, and making sure that I'm getting up at least like 2-3 hours before I need to be out the door. Like, not I'm late. I get late. I'm so late everywhere. And I'm so late sometimes. And a lot of the times, especially if I'm training all day Saturday, I need to be up. I've realized that I sometimes will have to put in reminders about like when I need to eat, because I sometimes forget. I will just forget to eat and forget to drink. So I try and put in reminders and so forth. it's trying to just write things down, like to-do lists, and as well having rest days where I do nothing, because I think having ADHD can be very overstimulating. I get very overstimulated very easily, even like in my body. Sometimes I'll just feel it here, and it's like I don't know what to do. So
that's so fascinating. Yeah. So because you're mentioning, and again, I've not been diagnosed, but a lot of those things you're saying, I found myself doing like internally to kind of help me through it. So like having like a calendar, I've got a calendar, having like things to do throughout the day. I need that because otherwise I kind of lose track of time.
Yeah,
time just
literally
doesn't mean
time
anything.
doesn't exist.
Yeah,
like it literally. I feel like I don't understand the concept of time, and it just goes so quick, and I'm like, down the day's gone.
I was arguing with my friend the other day. I was like, why do I need to be somewhere at like 10:00, like on the dot? No one cares about 1 minute.
Literally.
If I'm there like 5 minutes later, I get it, I'm late, but I'm still there. Like I'm coming there. Like the idea of like time being so specific doesn't make sense to me. And maybe I'm just late. Maybe I'm just like lazy.
Maybe you're just late. You're just late. You're just late.
Lazy. It's just me.
Nah, you're definitely not lazy.
But,
you're definitely
you know
not.
what I mean? Because so it's like kind of like understanding that about yourself and trying to put things in ways to kind of help you kind of move forward and make your life slightly more easier, you know?
Yeah. I have like object permanence as well sometimes, which is like when something is out of like your sight, it's out of mind. Yeah. There's so many connections with people that I just forget to message. I have a very small, close-knit circle, but everyone outside of that, I like forget. And even forget my close-knit circle. Like even like throughout January, I just didn't talk to anyone. Yeah. I just like, you're out of my mind. You're out of sight.
Yeah,
it's
I have that too. And it's something I really struggle with because I do care. I do genuinely care.
Like,
but I just like, you're just not there. Unless I'm like, oh my God, I should message this person. Yeah. But I don't have the ability to kind of think about them when I'm not there and like, you know, reach out.
Exactly. And that's something I really struggled with as well. It's just like, you're not existing. So. Yeah.
So you don't come, you're not there. And I think, you
don't, it's really sucky, but like if they're not there, like you don't exist in my mind. And it's like fucked up because you do, but it's just like,
in that moment, and then also when you become very, very stressed and busy, I find myself retreating into myself. Yeah. And then because I do that, less people exist. And then like it's like a whole thing. So I think I've learned my friends have also learned to forgive me when I do that. They kind of understand like, oh, that's just Jeff. Like he'll pop back up when he's like, you know, he's probably probably overwhelmed. You know, I think I'm grateful that I have those kind of friends.
Yeah, no, that's amazing that you have those friends because it's not always easy to come by, especially if you do struggle with those things. So like making sure that your friends understand you and understand what you're going through and sort of being vocal, even when it's difficult, just being like, yo, like I need time away. I just need some space. Like I think is so important.
Yeah, one of the ways that we met was through poetry.
Yes.
And so I want to get onto poetry because I feel like I love the fact that you've got all of these different talents and also you have an amazing way with words and expression and the ways to like get your internal feelings out, you know. Obviously, you've grown up with your body, but you also found a way to, you know, figure out how to translate what's in your mind, you know. Talk to me about your love of writing. When did that start for you and how has it kind of developed over the years?
I think I started when I was about 16. You know, I used to journal a lot. I journaled mostly when I was doing like bad mentally. I think it gave me a safe space to just sort of write. And a lot of my earlier poems were just about my mental health, and they were a bit shitty but real, you know. And that's like what writing is like writing everything down. It's all this jumble and, you know, of stuff. But I continued journaling and always was journaling, writing poems when I wanted to, and I think it's only in the last few months that I've actually realised how much I love poetry and how much I love using my voice in that way and sort of creating an image for people and like coming into my world. I think is such a gift to let people in a way that isn't just talking at them, but in a way that almost delves into memory as well as emotion. And yeah, it's only in the last few months that I've actually just started picking up my pen and paper and writing with an intention to show, you know. So yeah.
Do you write to be understood, or do you write for others to understand yourself? Sorry.
I think it's a mix of both. I think it's a mix of trying to understand myself and decipher aspects of things that I'd gone through or emotions that I was feeling and sort of paint it in a picture that is digestible. But as well, I think it's for people to listen to me, because I don't think I ever felt listened. It's only been in therapy that I felt listened. And giving up a space in my heart, you know, for people to just have my heart on my sleeve and just people see it, you know, and it not be in a case of well, it's vulnerable, of course, but it's not in a case of unjustified vulnerability. Do you get what I mean?
I know what you mean. It's not like you're overbearing.
Yeah.
You're really just sharing.
I'm just sharing. Yeah.
I think one thing I really appreciate about your poetry is that you face reality. You have this very, very voice, which is just like I said to you before. It's such a beautiful way to show the realities. You don't hide away from what's real or what your experience is. You know, was that intentional thing to always I'm gonna just say what I think, what comes out to me, and make it make sense if it makes sense without sugarcoating it.
I think as a person, deep down as a person, I'm very much like that. I just try to lay it out on the table. When you get to know me, I'm very much try to lay out on the table with trying to be sweet at the same time, you know. But I don't think I really went in with the intention of being vulnerable. I think it just happened because that's aspects of my life. You know, aspects of my life were hard and intense and completely unconventional, you know. Well, not completely unconventional, but aspects were. And because that was my life, that's what I felt like I needed to write about, you know. And with that just came that vulnerability and that realness and that, you know, yeah.
I think it's again, talk about identity and what it means. There's different stages that I think you have to we go through. For me, when I get to the stage of poetry, it was me coming to terms with who I was and really accepting that. And it was okay, cool. There's no need to shy away from who I am. Yeah. Poetry allows me to bare my soul. You know, poetry allows me to become. You almost you're figuring out a voice in your head, which is encapsulating your memory, your past, your future, and then vocalizing that. But for you, it's also a surprise. You know, I'm pretty sure you've been surprised by poems that you've written and been can't believe I just wrote this and this came out of my mind. You know?
No, exactly. There are stuff that I've written in a daze at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I'm fuck, geez, this slaps. This is so good. And I'm wow, I don't know.
Yeah,
it does. Yeah, and this is, you know, that's what creativity is all about. It's spontaneous. Sometimes it just comes out of nowhere. It comes from the depths of who you are in this split second, and it's fuck, I need to write this down.
Right, this is a very hard question, but is there a poem that you most relate to, that you most love, is for a certain reason? Was it your first poem that you wrote? Is there a poem that you have in mind when you think of that?
Oof. There are a few, I would say. I think one of the first ones that I loved writing, I think, was The Love I Have for Rain, which was about my first love and my first crush. And I think that one was always so real and true to me. And I was young. I was 18, 19, and it was so pure and so real and sweet. And for me to have this sort of emotional understanding about how love felt for me was so sweet. But I would say a lot of the harder stuff as well. You know, I had a poem about, you know, me working at the strip club and me sort of seeing it from the feminine perspective. And that one was a difficult one to write, but at the same time it gave me a place to put that past aspect of myself somewhere, you know, and sort of share that. So I'd say definitely that one as well.
You talk about love. What what is your perspective on love now? I love to ask you for this question.
Oh, what's my
because it's just so
perspective?
interesting.
Yeah,
right?
no,
Together to pick it apart.
exactly.
What is your thoughts on love and dating and romanticism and all of that right now?
I think at this moment in time, I'm focused on loving myself and giving my love to myself, even though that doesn't stop me from loving people, like loving my friends and loving people that were once were, and having timeless love is always innate when you love yourself, you know? I try not to shy away from that, even if it means that I'm like accidentally telling someone I love them when I shouldn't have done. And it was like, I don't ever regret telling someone I love them or like being in love, because that is so pure. It's so pure and it's so real. And, you know, I think I'm just more focused on myself at this moment in time, but that doesn't stop me from loving people who do come in and out of my life, you know. But relationships at this moment in time, I'm too focused, you know. I don't think I have I think I'm a bit selfish. Like I am. Like I need to be a bit more selfish right now to sort of get where I want to be, and that's okay.
Yeah, no, I understand that very intimately, and it's the tension I'm always struggling with. I do think I'm like, damn, am I selfish? Like, I think it's that is also object permanence. Like,
exactly.
You know, in my life, I really don't care, and I'm like, oh man, that's not great. You know,
I know.
there are these people that I mean, I'm like, oh, you're so cool, but also like, you know, like, all right, cool, it's not the right time. And I guess, you know, the reason I love asking people about romance and love, because I think it's such a different thing for all of us to come to terms with. You know, we get to a certain age where we each have a specific relationship to that. You know, we're all part of this dating market, I guess. But that doesn't really exist in an individual level. You know, if you really, especially for poets, I think poets just go like, what am I doing here?
I've bared my soul on stage, and you want me to talk about, oh, how are you? How's the weather? Like, I want to talk about real things. I want to get deep. I want to know.
Oh my God, I'm sorry.
Literally, and I think I have a difficulty with just being a bit too much of an open book, and
there's no such thing.
I
don't believe any such thing. I get and the wars is not.
Yeah, and I see the thing is at uni, I was really shy, and this was only a year or two ago. It's because so many people, and I don't want to bare my soul as of now, because I just who deserves that?
Yeah,
who's going to understand, and who deserves it at this moment in time? So I just wasn't really myself until I came back to London.
And now you're in front of an audience.
Now I'm in front of an audience. Look, I'm here. I'm here.
No, but honestly, I feel like it's great. I'm super like proud of you for like the journey that you've kind of explained to me that you've taken, and I think. Like that's like such a an important way of kind of like existing. Just always trying new things and always putting ourselves in different scenarios and seeing what part of ourselves we can grow into and become. You know, I feel like that the process of becoming is such a beautiful process for people to go through.
Yeah, and I'm so lucky as well that to help myself with becoming, I met so many great people. Like especially in uni, like I had a close knit of friends in the year above, and a few in like my year as well. That like I don't think I would have been able to understand who I was or had the support if I didn't have them, you know? And it's like just remembering that like love is more than just someone you have sex with or someone you're dating. It's love is in everything, you know, and love is an energy.
I love it. Love is energy.
Love is love.
Love is energy.
Love is energy.
Let's go.
Like it is. So
no, I agree. And I think internally, like I think people recognize this when they act out love. They see that it's not just one thing you do with a person. It's kind of how you approach the world and how you kind of your relationship with it, and it kind of reciprocates that if you do it in the right way. You know?
No, exactly.
All right, last question I have for you is what's next for Forde? What is next? You've talked about your journey from early, you know, dancing to now poetry, and what is next in the evolution? Do you think about that? Do you think about like what happens in a few years' time and growth and all of that?
I try to take it one day at a time. I really do, because you know, you don't know how many days you got. You don't know when it could end. It's just trying to enjoy every day as it comes. And I think for me right now, it's just focusing on poetry, focusing on my career, focusing on my friends, and and getting to a place where I'm just confident, you know, with just being and just sitting still. You know, I think I've come to a place that I am really, really good at that, but I can do a little bit better, you know, slowing down and taking time in and showing up for me. So that's the future for me, really, showing up for me and following my heart. So.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Forde. Thank you so much for speaking with me today.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
It's been an absolute pleasure for me too, like getting to know you more and, you know, hearing your story. I think, yeah, like I think you're super inspirational. You know, your perspective is super inspirational. You're able to articulate your experiences. You know, like I hope people can check out your poetry because I am completely such a fan. You know, like I think, yeah, like I've said this 1,000 times and I will continue to say it. You're a fantastic writer, but also, you know, meeting you, I can also tell you're a really good person. So again, thank you for being.
I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you guys for watching. Until next time, peace.